Welcome to the Idaho WITS RSS Provider Training. We'll start at the main Idaho WITS webpage, wits.idaho.gov. Here you'll click on your appropriate domain. In this case, we'll click on Idaho WITS for Substance Use Provider Network. This will take you to the SUD announcements page. On the announcements page, you have pertinent announcements in the center of the screen. Links to the 3 WITS sites, the Mountain Time Zone, the Pacific Time Zone, and the training site, as well as WITS resources in the left column. We'll click on WITS resources. Under WITS user guides, this is where the SUD Provider e-manual is located. This contains much of the information you may need to complete actions within WITS and guidance on functional operation of the system. If we go back to our announcements page, we'll click on our link to the training site. If any person would like to be set up with a training account in the WITS training environment, just email the help desk at dbhwitshd@dhw.idaho.gov and request a training account. Click on the training link. And this is the initial warning screen for the WITS training site. It does state that access to this system is restricted to authorized users only. Violators are subject to imprisonment and/or fine. Continuing beyond this point certifies your understanding and compliance with all applicable restrictions and regulations. WITS is a secure HIPAA and CFR 42 compliant electronic health record system, and this means that anyone accessing Idaho WITS is required to have a current, signed WITS user agreement on file. WITS user accounts are created by the agency WITS administrator. Once their user account is created, a user will receive an email with their WITS user ID. They'll also receive another email, which will allow them to set their security question, password, and PIN. Anyone logging into WITS must confirm the understanding of and compliance with related regulations prior to each WITS login. Anyone with access to Idaho WITS must never share their user ID, password, or PIN with another person. All WITS users must agree to securely maintain their information within the WITS user agreement. Any violation of the WITS user agreement can result in the revocation of your access to Idaho WITS. Criminal prosecution may be undertaken if the information within WITS is knowingly and intentionally disclosed to anyone who is unauthorized or if the information is used for fraudulent purposes. To log into the system, click OK. And enter your user ID, password, and PIN. There is a link if you've forgotten your password. This will generate a reset credentials link that will come to your email where you can reset your password and PIN. Once you've entered your information, click Login. You'll first be met by the facility selection screen. Your agency will pre-populate, and you'll have a drop-down to select your facility. If you have more than one facility, each option will display here. Select the appropriate facility and click Go. You'll be taken to the home screen. You'll see the site at the top of the screen. Here we are in Idaho WITS training. If it were Mountain or Pacific, it would denote that here. It will show your agency and facility that you currently have selected. You can click on that to change facilities if you have more than one facility. The staff that's logged in will be listed here, and the logout button is located right beneath that. If you need to change your login information at any point, you can hover over your name, click it, and then click Change Credentials. That will allow you to change your password, PIN, or security question. Informational messages will display across the top. This will show when you have referrals in, as well as anybody that's been waitlisted and other information. Announcements will display here. On the left side of the screen, we have the WITS navigation pane. This is where you will make selections for submenus within the system. In the left-hand navigation menu, click Agency, and then Billing, and we'll begin on the encounter list. As with many of the search areas within WITS, you'll be greeted with a number of fields that you can populate with information. Here you can look for first name, last name, Social Security, a particular payer plan, an encounter number specifically. You can also select the status. You have a number of options here. If you select all unreleased, it will display any unreleased encounters. You also have the ability to select a service start date. For today's purposes, we'll bracket a period of time. You can do this in a couple of ways. You can either use the greater than symbol. In this case, it would be greater than the first of the year, not to include that date. If you add the equal sign after that, it will include the date that you've listed. You also have the option to put a full colon between two dates, and that will serve as a beginning date and an end date, bracketing a period of time. Once you've entered your search criteria, click Go. And this will display all unreleased encounters for that time period. You do have the option to export this list, and that will export that as an Excel file. In the gray header bar, any of the blue underlined selectable text can be clicked to sort the entire list by that column header, either in ascending or descending order. Click it once for ascending, click it again for descending. This screen allows you to identify all unreleased encounters and release them if necessary. You can locate an unreleased encounter, hover over the pencil and click Profile. This will take you to that encounter. At this point, you can review that information, ensure that everything is accurate. Advance to the second screen and ensure that a signed note has been entered. At this point, if it's appropriate, you can release that encounter to billing, and this will take you back to that encounter list. You may be prompted to select a group enrollment. You can select the appropriate group enrollment and click Finish. You'll then receive the informational message that the encounter was released. Once you've ensured that all encounters have been released that should have been released, you'll move over to the claim item list. So in the claim item list, you'll see a list of all of the released encounters. The item status will pre-populate with released. Again, you have a number of options for searching for any claim item. Again, you have a number of fields that you can populate with information to search for a claim item. And under the status, you have awaiting review, a few of the awaiting review sub-items like possible duplicate or insufficient funds, released, which is what it will pre-populate with, batched, which is where once you batch these items, that's the status that they will be in. And then you can look for all awaiting review, and it will look for awaiting review of any of those subtypes. So in our list of released items, there is a column here for indicating one of these items, and you can change the status. So here for this first item, if we click the checkbox to indicate that item, and on the right side of that lower blue banner, we have update status in a drop-down. So if we put that in a hold status, click update status, that'll prevent that item from being batched in any batches that we create. This is something that you do manually. Then you can go and address any issues with that item, change it back to a release status, and then it can be included in subsequent batches. If we hover over the pencil and click profile on any one of these released items, we have the option to change that item status here at the bottom in the administrative actions area as well. You'll see the profile information of this service and the dates. We also have the option to reject the item back out. What that will do is put that back in the claim item list, and it will then be editable so that we can make any changes that are necessary and then re-release that item so that we can include it in a batch. When you click reject back out, you will be prompted with an area where you can select the reason and then enter comments. And this will show up in the details for that item so that somebody looking at it can identify why it was rejected. Once you've entered those comments, you can click confirm. And now if we navigate back to the client and enter their encounter list, we'll see that claim item 1 will be indicated in red, that it will have the details, which will be the comments that we entered, available. And then it will be editable so that we can make any changes that are necessary, and then at that point, if appropriate, re-release that item, and it'll go back to that claim item list in a release status. So if we find our client here and enter their activity list, review the encounter summary, and you'll see that item here listed in red. Clicking on details will bring up a little pop-up window that shows those comments. Now if we review that claim item by hovering over the pencil and clicking review, we can make any changes that we need. And then click Release to Billing, and that'll send it back to the claim item list in a release status. And we do get the informational message across the top that that item has been released. Now we'll go back to Agency and then Billing. Clicking on the claim item list, we'll see that that item is back that we've released. And at this point, once you have all of the released items that you want included in a batch, under the Administrative Actions box, you have two options. You can select a facility and create facility-specific batches. It will only create a batch for the facility that you're logged into. So if you want to do that, you need to change your facility location for each batch that you create. The other option you have is to create an agency batch, and that will create a batch with all items for a payer type. When we click on that, we'll see that any of the payer plans that are within those claim items that we have, and those will display here. We can either move one over and create them individually, or if we move all of those payer plans over by highlighting them and then clicking the mover arrow, it will create a separate batch for each of those plans. So we'll move them both over here and then click Go. We do receive an informational message across the top stating that those batches are being created, and this will take a few minutes. And generally speaking, it does take a couple of minutes to complete. So now we'll click on Claim Batch List, and the status here pre-populates with awaiting review. You have a number of items that you can search for a particular batch. When a batch is created, typically it will go into a released status, which is what we'll search for today. And another way to search for that batch is to put in a date that it was created, and anything you created on that date will show up. Once you've entered your search information, we can click Go. And then if we hover over the pencil for these batches, we'll have two options: Claim Items and Profile. If we click on Claim Items, in that lower table, it will break out all claim items included in that batch. You'll see those two items listed down here. At this point, if we need to remove one of these from the batch, you can check the checkbox on that item to indicate it, and then on that right side of that lower blue banner, you have Remove from Claim Batch, and that'll send that claim item back into the claim item list in a status of awaiting review. At that point, you can address any issues that there might be with that claim item, and then re-release it and batch it into a subsequent batch as well. If we hover over the pencil and click Profile, that will take us into the batch profile. We have some information up top. It does show that status, currently released. Then across the bottom, we can either indicate that batch as being awaiting review. We can also put it in a hold status similar to the claim items. Void will reject all claim items back to the claim item list in a status of released, sort of an undo on the batch. And then finally we have billet, which is what we'll do today. Once you click billet, this is what actually sends that information out to the payer, and at that point it's in their hands, so the billing process is essentially complete. And the status will update to billed. And we'll use the other batch that we had to demonstrate rejecting those claim items out and what that process looks like. So click Finish here. And then hover over the pencil on our other batch and click Claim Items. And then we'll pick one of these claim items here, and you can indicate that by checking the checkbox on that item line. And then on the right-hand side of that lowest blue banner, clicking Remove from the claim batch. That'll put that back in the claim item list in a status of awaiting review. So we'll move over to the claim item list now. And it does pre-populate with released. So we'll change that drop down to awaiting review. And then to sort of target for our time frame, so we don't pull up too many awaiting review items, we'll put a date in here. And then click Go. So now we have the option to address any issues with the item. We can reject that back out to the encounter screen if we need to. You can hover over the profile here, but once all issues have been addressed and you're ready to release that again, it's the same process. You indicate that with the checkbox, click that drop down to release, and then update the status. And that'll put that item back in a status of released. And you'll see that there. At this point, you can create another batch and then go to the claim batch list and bill that batch out as well. So we'll move back to the claim batch list again, and we'll finish billing out our second batch that was in there. Again, it does pre-populate with awaiting review as the status. So we'll put released for the status and then put a date in there for the created date. Click go. Then hover over the pencil and click profile. So if we click void on this batch, we do get a confirmational message. We'll click yes on that. And that will take all of those claim items and put them back in the claim item list with a status of released. In this way, we can then take that set of 4 original encounters and batch them all together again. So now we have another batch in released status here. We'll hover over the pencil and click profile. And then click bill it in the administrative actions. Click finish here. And then you can still pull those batches up, but they will now have a status of billed. So you can change that item status there. Click go, and then we can still view those batches if we need to. So for viewing payments, we have 3 options: the payment list, EOB transaction list, and the billing transaction list. We'll start at the payment list. Again, you're met with some fields you could populate with information for searching. The contractor field and payer plan can be useful in narrowing down the results specific to a selection. You can also enter a posted date to specify a time frame. Click go to display the results, and those will populate in the table below. You'll see the payer listed, as well as the posted date and the amount. That payment number is listed in that first column there. So we'll scroll through and I'll locate the payment that I made for the training here. And then hover over the pencil and click profile. So you'll see on the payment profile, we have about the same amount of information that was displayed previously, but down at the bottom we have the additional option to show those payment application details. So if we click on that, what that will do is take that payment number and automatically enter it into the search in the EOB transaction list. here you can see the EOB transaction details for that payment number. And this shows a breakdown of the payment transaction type with each of the item statuses listed and any adjustment reasons entered. You'll see the payment number listed. This screen will only show those items paid. The final screen we'll look at can be the most useful when trying to track down billing issues, and that's the billing transaction list. Again, you have a number of fields you can populate with information. You can look for a specific payment number, encounter number, client name, adjustment reason, transaction type. And each of these drop-downs will have options. And you can select what's appropriate and narrow your search by that field if you wish. What we'll do today is enter a service start date here, and we'll use that operator of greater than. Click Go to display the results. They'll show in that table below. So the benefit here is that we see all charges as well as subsequent payments for those items that have been paid. Any items that have a charge but no subsequent payment have been billed but haven't yet been paid. And if we sort by the encounter number here, it will make all charges and payments, if they are available, adjacent to one another. So it's very easy to go through and see what's been paid and what the amount was, and whether or not there's a discrepancy between the charge and the payment. And here you can see the charge, and then for that same encounter number, that payment. And then the payment number is listed in that final column. So we'll scroll through and find an item that has a discrepancy between that charge and the payment. And this can be either due to a copay, 5% holdback, etc. So here you'll see for this encounter number, we have our charge listed. And then the payment right above it. And in this case, there is a discrepancy between the two. We can copy that payment number from the final column and then paste it into the EOB transaction list in the payment number field. And that'll give us additional detail for that payment. And here you'll see those payment details. This will include other encounters in the payment, but you can look here for that adjustment reason, for that discrepancy between the charge and that